They say some gifts aren't about the money, but somehow, the moment I gave mine, everyone in the room looked cheaper. I'm Sienna, and I used to believe if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. Turns out, I was just fueling a spotlight I'd never stand in. They didn't expect me to bring anything. That much was clear the second I walked through the front door and Mom said, "Oh, you made it. Not we missed you. Not you look great." Just that. Like my arrival was a pleasant surprise, not an inevitable part of a 25th wedding anniversary. I smiled anyway. Quietly, practiced. The kind of smile that fits perfectly under a layer of foundation and history. And then I handed her the box, wrapped in matte ivory, no bow, no glitter. Just a black satin ribbon knotted sharp and clean. Minimalist, intentional. It looked out of place among the floral bags and crinkled pastel tissue exploding from a gift table that screamed suburban extravagance. She blinked. "What's this?" I shrugged. "Something small." She laughed, though nothing was funny. "Well, hopefully not another air fryer. I've got two now." Dad wandered over with a glass of whiskey in hand, loose tie already stained. "You didn't have to get anything, Sienna. This isn't about presents." He leaned in slightly. "You know, we're just glad you're here." That would have meant something, if they hadn't said the same thing last year when they forgot my birthday. Luke, of course, was already holding court in the living room, his arm around Danielle like she was a prize he'd just won, not a person. He flashed that politician's smile of his when he spotted me. "Hey, stranger, look who decided to drop in from whatever hipster city she's living in." "I live 20 minutes away, Luke," I said, flat. "Yeah, but you know what I mean." I didn't, and I wasn't in the mood to. The gift opening came after dinner. A curated meal, catered and captioned on Mom's Facebook story before the last dish was cleared. Everyone circled the living room like it was a coronation. Mom and Dad sat centered, champagne flutes in hand, radiant under the dimmed chandelier. Luke's gift came first, 2 tickets to see Hamilton, plus a monogrammed throw blanket. Applause. Mom teared up. Danielle gave them a handmade scrapbook with old photos and captions like, "Love like this never grows old." Gag-worthy, but effective. The aunts swooned. Then came my box. Mom held it like it might explode. "It's heavy." She peeled the ribbon slowly, like she wanted to savor the moment. When she lifted the lid and unfolded the envelope inside, the room fell oddly quiet. Her eyes scanned the voucher once, then twice. Dad took it from her hand. "What is it?" Her voice tightened. "A 5-day stay. Napa Valley. Private vineyard suite. Spa." He frowned. "This is real?" Sienna nodded. I mean, that's too much," Mom stammered, eyes darting around the room like she needed backup. "It's extravagant. Unnecessary." Luke chuckled. "Wow, okay. Show off much?" Danielle whispered something to him and tried to stifle a laugh. "Who gives something like this for a family event?" he added. Dad gave a small cough. "We appreciate the thought, Sienna, but this kind of thing, it's a little over the top. Honestly, it's kind of embarrassing." The word hung there. Embarrassing. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out the folded piece of paper, the receipt, and placed it quietly on the coffee table. For a moment, no one moved. Luke leaned over, looked at the total, and let out a low whistle. "Jesus." Mom's face flushed. "You actually paid for this?" I met her eyes for the first time that night. "Yes." Danielle looked uncomfortable. "Good." Dad cleared his throat again. "Sienna, we didn't expect—" "I know." I stood up, smoothed out my coat. "That's why it's a gift." Then I walked out. No one followed. No one called my name. No one even asked why. Outside, the air was cold, sharp against my skin. I walked down the driveway slowly, like I wasn't in a rush to leave, but had nowhere else I needed to be. Truth is, I didn't buy the trip to impress them. I bought it because, for the first time in years, I had the means. I'd saved, worked weekends, passed up things I wanted for something I thought they'd remember. But what they remembered was the price, not the gesture. Funny how that works, isn't it? Ever given something real and been told it was too much? I didn't cry on the way home. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd already spent years grieving people who were still alive. I drove past the gas station where I used to wait after my high school shifts, phone clutched in my hand, hoping someone would remember to pick me up. They rarely did. Eventually, I stopped asking. Eventually, I learned to walk. That's the thing about being the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who doesn't need as much. People stop offering before you even know to ask. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car with the engine running, headlights cutting through the mist like a metaphor I didn't want to unpack. The gift receipt was still in my coat pocket. The crinkle of it was louder than the engine. I used to think that if I gave enough, quietly, without making a scene, one day I'd be invited to belong. Turns out I was just giving them more reasons not to try. I didn't even get my coat off before I saw the text. Mom, next time just ask what we need. We're not showy people, but we still love you. Still. That word did something to me. Still love me. In spite of what? The gift? The effort? The fact I left before dessert? The next day I found the old photo album. Not the curated one Mom kept on the coffee table for guests, with Luke's football trophies and Christmases where he got center placement next to the fireplace. No, this one was tucked deep in my own closet. A mismatched scrapbook with pages I used to build myself, back when I believed memories had to be preserved or they'd slip away. I flipped through it slowly, each page peeling like it had aged twice as fast from being ignored. There I was at 7, missing a front tooth, holding a handmade card that said, "Happy Anniversary," in crayon. I remembered that year clearly. I'd saved my lunch money for 2 weeks to buy my parents a snow globe from the pharmacy gift aisle. It had a tiny church inside. I thought it was beautiful. That night, I gave it to them at dinner. Luke had nothing. He still got praised for writing a card at the last minute. My snow globe? Mom smiled and said, "Maybe next time, pick something a little more meaningful." The older I got, the quieter the comments became, but the message never changed. "Luke's under so much pressure, sweetie. He needs support right now. You've always been the strong one. Don't be so sensitive. We treat you the same." That's what people outside the family always assumed. That things were fair, equal, because that's what it looked like. I learned young that silence was currency. If I didn't push back, I got praise for being mature. If I did, I got called difficult. So I played the part. Good daughter, quiet achiever, helpful, dependable, low maintenance. And Luke? He got the spotlight just for showing up on time. I remember once in 10th grade, I brought home an art award. First place, state level. Dad glanced at it while watching TV. "Didn't know you were still into that." That same month, Luke failed a math test. They hired a private tutor the next day. There's a kind of grief that doesn't come with a funeral. It creeps in through small things, forgotten birthdays, backhanded compliments, lukewarm hugs. And you carry it like background noise, only noticing when the room gets quiet enough to hear it clearly. That night, I heard it louder than ever, and I wasn't in the mood to quiet it anymore. The next morning, my neighbor, Mrs. Sanders, caught me outside. She was walking her Pomeranian and waved her mittened hand. "Big family party last night?" I offered a tight smile. "Something like that?" She leaned in conspiratorially. "I always see you taking care of your folks. You're a good one." It wasn't a compliment. It was a confirmation. Of a role I never auditioned for. Of a script I'd memorized too well. I didn't answer. Later that day, I got a voice memo from Luke. He always loved the drama of voice notes. "Hey, so, I don't know what that was about. You just left? Like, no goodbye? Kinda weird, honestly. But, listen, Danielle's parents might be throwing us an engagement dinner. Thought it'd be nice to have you there. Let me know if you can show up on time." Show up. Not join. Not celebrate. Not be wanted. Just show up. Like a seat filler. That night, I started cleaning out my home office and found a folder I'd almost forgotten about. It was labeled "Things I Don't Say." Inside, an unpaid invoice for the $2,000 Luke borrowed just until next Friday. Copies of emails I'd written helping Mom with her tax mess when she ignored IRS letters for 6 months. Screenshots of texts she sent to her church group, gushing about Luke's job promotions. She'd never mentioned my career. Not once. At the very bottom was a note I'd written to myself 3 years ago. A list titled, "What would change if I stopped trying?" Most of the answers? Nothing. And somehow, that felt like freedom. Ever asked yourself what would change if you stopped trying? I hadn't heard from my parents since the night of the party, but Luke? Luke never goes long without reminding people he's the son. The text came mid-morning when I was halfway through drafting a report for a client. He sent a photo, a gold-embossed envelope with Danielle and Luke printed in script. Luke, save the date. Big news coming soon. You better show this time. The audacity wasn't surprising. It was the emoji that got me, like the last 72 hours had never happened. Like calling my gift embarrassing was just harmless family banter. I didn't reply, but something itched at me. I opened the invitation on my screen, zoomed in on the name of the event planner in the corner. Evelyn Moreau Events, a boutique agency. I clicked through their site. Curated experiences for legacy couples. I almost laughed. Legacy? Danielle once told me she thought loyalty points were a form of socialism. But then I saw something else. One of the images, Luke and Danielle in a stylized engagement shoot. Vineyard backdrop. Expensive lighting. Posted 4 days before the party. The caption? So honored to be part of Luke and Danielle's Napa Valley story. Napa. The exact location of the gift I gave our parents. The one they said was too much. Embarrassing. I stared at the screen. I had spent hours researching packages, cross-checking reviews, booking through a travel advisor who owed me a favor. I wanted it to feel luxurious, timeless, like something they'd talk about for years. But now, I saw it clearly. Luke hadn't just stolen the attention at the party. He'd co-opted my gift before it was even opened. Which meant one thing, he knew. I called the concierge. Hi, I'm just confirming a package booked last week, under the name Wu. It was a surprise. The woman on the phone was polite, professional. Yes, the 5-night prestige retreat at Oak Shadow Estate, confirmed under Lucas Wu and Danielle Braxton. I didn't speak for a moment. Was there a note attached? Let me check. A pause, keys tapping. Yes, it says, to the best parents. Thank you for your love and example. Can't wait to follow in your footsteps. I closed my eyes. He hadn't just claimed it, he'd rewritten it. I drove straight to my old neighborhood, not to confront anyone, not yet. I just needed to see something. My parents' house sat the same way it always did, neatly trimmed hedges, a faded welcome mat that hadn't felt like it meant me in years. The blinds were open. Through the window, I saw Mom on the couch, flipping through a binder. Planning. Not for me. Never for me. Just then, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, wary. Is this Sienna Wu? The voice was clipped, older, assertive. Yes. This is Lorraine Paxton. I'm with First Horizon Credit Union. I have you listed as a co-signer on a personal line of credit. For a Mr. Lucas Wu? I stopped walking. Excuse me? I'm just calling to confirm recent activity. A cash advance of $4,000 was processed last week. I hadn't signed anything in years. But back then, when Luke couldn't qualify for his first car loan, of course he'd left my name on the file. I thanked her and hung up. My fingers were shaking, but not from shock, from clarity. Later that evening, I opened a folder on my desktop titled simply, Luke. I'd started it as a joke. Somewhere to store screenshots of his motivational Instagram posts. Success isn't inherited, it's earned. Grind in silence, let the results speak. But now, it became something else. I added screenshots of his emails to me asking for quick transfers, bank statements, showing repeated withdrawals from a joint account I'd forgotten I was still tied to. And then, an audio file. It was from last Thanksgiving. I'd left my phone recording by accident while it sat face down on the kitchen table. In it, I could hear Luke laughing with Dad. You think she actually believes we see her the same way? Dad chuckled, muted. Luke again. Come on, she's background, solid, dependable, but you don't put the plumber in the family photo. The room in the recording erupted in laughter. I hadn't heard it until now. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, still, heavy, like a building waiting to fall. Then I hit play again. This time I listened closer. Because when people think you're invisible, they speak without fear. And when they speak, they forget to hide the truth. 3 hours later, I created a new folder. The Drop. Not for revenge, not yet, but for clarity, for memory. Because if they ever tried to gaslight me again, say it wasn't that bad, that I was overreacting, that Luke is just a kid, I'd have the record. And if life had taught me anything, it was this. The truth only matters when you can prove it. What do you keep in the folder no one knows about? It started with a folder, but it didn't stay there. Once you start gathering truth, it changes the way you hear everything, past, present, and even your own voice. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the recording. I'd replayed worse in my head for years. What kept me awake was the clarity. It was like finally hearing your name in a room you thought you were whispering into. Like realizing you weren't being ignored. You were being used. The next morning, I made coffee strong enough to taste through betrayal. Then I started digging. I wanted facts, dates, patterns, receipts that didn't rely on memory or gut feeling. And I had them. Luke's loan co-signed under my name, $4,000. Another account I hadn't remembered signing. He'd used my name to apply for a credit card in college. Current balance, $7,800. Transactions showing automatic withdrawals from the shared account our mother insisted on just in case of family emergencies. Luke had been using it to pay his gym membership and meal delivery service. I printed everything, marked it with sticky notes. Yellow for money, red for manipulation, blue for moments that still hurt. Then I opened a new document. Title: Narrative Control. There are two kinds of power in families like mine. The kind you inherit, silently, by fitting the mold. The kind you earn by staying silent long enough for people to mistake your patience for permission. Luke had the first. I was about to take back the second. I reached out to the one person I knew wouldn't dismiss this as family drama. Ruth, my mother's older sister. Estranged, technically, though that word always felt too clean. She wasn't banished so much as gently erased over time. Too unmarried, too opinionated, too unwilling to nod along. She once told me, when I was 14, if they don't clap for you when you win, they won't notice when you drown. I didn't understand it then. I do now. She picked up on the second ring. Sienna? Hi, I know it's been a while. Her voice softened. You okay? I think I'm finally getting there. A pause. Do you have room for someone who's tired of pretending? Another pause. Always. Ruth's apartment was small, lived in, and smelled faintly of lavender and wood polish. She had 2 cats, a tea drawer that could stock a small cafe, and a filing system that would impress the IRS. She didn't ask me what I wanted to do. She asked, "What do you need to do?" I opened the manila envelope I'd brought. She took out each page, read quietly, and didn't interrupt once. When she was done, she looked up at me. I assume your parents don't know you have all this. No. And you haven't confronted Luke? I shook my head. He'd just flip it on me, say I'm bitter, dramatic, jealous. Are you? Not jealous, I said. But bitter? Yeah, a little. She nodded. Good. Bitterness is honesty that's been forced to sit too long. Ruth helped me organize everything. Digitally, then legally. We requested formal statements from the bank, froze the shared account, filed a fraud inquiry on the credit card Luke opened with my name, pulled my name off every co-signed account I could find. I even wrote a cease and desist draft in case things got ugly. And then we made copies of everything, for Mom, for Dad, for Luke, and for Danielle. Not to start a war, but to end the rewriting of my role in theirs. You sure you don't want to confront them in person? Ruth asked, her tone neutral. I looked at the stack of envelopes. They never saw me clearly in person. She smiled faintly. You're your mother's daughter in blood, but not in behavior. I tilted my head. What do you mean? She controls the story, always has. You're just taking back the pen. 2 days later, I dropped the envelopes off. No return address. One at my parents' house, one at Luke's apartment complex. One hand-delivered to Danielle's family business. The final one I kept, just in case. That night, I didn't feel victorious. I felt still, like I'd finally stopped trying to climb a ladder that was never leaning against a real wall. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering what would happen next. Not afraid, just curious. What would they do when their favorite mirror cracked? 3 days later, the text started. Mom, Sienna, why would you do this? Can we please talk before this goes any further? You've always been so level-headed. This feels unlike you. That last one almost made me laugh. Unlike me? She meant unlike the version of me they liked. Quiet, self-erasing, convenient. Luke left a voicemail. Sienna, this is insane. You could have just come to me. We're family. You're blowing this way out of proportion. This could seriously screw things up for me. For him, always him. Danielle sent a single message. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a while. It was the closest thing to accountability I'd ever seen from anyone connected to that family. I didn't reply, but I didn't block her either. Small steps. I don't believe in revenge for the sake of satisfaction, but I do believe in correction. And sometimes, silence isn't grace, it's neglect. Ever had to put something in writing, just to be heard? When you pull something out by the root, you don't just kill the plant. You reveal how deep it grew while no one was watching. I used to think the hurt started with the wedding anniversary. That was just the bloom. The seed was planted years before. Probably before I even knew what being invisible felt like. And Ruth, she saw it long before I did. It was a week after I sent the envelopes when she called and said, "Come over, I found something." I showed up with takeout. She showed up with a manila envelope that had my name written on it in thick black Sharpie. "I was going through some old boxes," she said. "Stuff your mom asked me to store back when she moved out of her first apartment. This was buried under a stack of tax files." I opened the flap. Inside were folded sheets of notebook paper, lined, smudged in the corners, yellowing with age. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My own. The looping, over-careful letters of someone trying too hard to be understood. It was a letter, dated April 12th, no year, addressed to Santa Claus. "Dear Santa, I know it's not Christmas, but I really want to ask early in case you are very busy. Can you please make Luke be nice to me? And make Mom come to my play? And make Dad say he's proud? Also, I was really good this week. I washed the dishes without asking. Please don't forget me. I know I'm not loud like Luke, but I still try hard. Love, Sienna." I stared at the page. There are some wounds you don't remember getting. You just live around them, like a limp you've learned to hide. "I almost threw it away," Ruth admitted softly. But then I read it, and I thought, she always knew. I looked up at her. "Why didn't anyone do anything?" I asked. She took a breath. "Because your parents were experts at looking normal, and because no one wanted to believe the kid who didn't throw tantrums. You were too quiet to be in pain." I swallowed. "But you saw it." "I did, and I regret not doing more." Her voice didn't waver. No excuse, no justification. Just that rare, solid thing no one else had ever given me. Acknowledgement. We sat there for a while, just sipping tea and breathing through a silence that felt less like distance and more like recognition. Then Ruth asked, "What are you going to do next?" I didn't answer right away, because truthfully I didn't know. I'd burned the mask, yes, but what do you do with the ashes? The next day I got a voicemail from my mother. "Sienna, I don't know what you want from us. We're your parents. We've always tried our best. Do you want us to grovel? To admit we're failures? That's not fair. Families have ups and downs, but you don't air them out like laundry." It wasn't what she said that got me. It was what she didn't say, not once. "I'm sorry, not once. You're right. We tried our best," as if effort erases harm. I replayed it twice, then deleted it. That evening, I checked social media for the first time in days. I didn't expect to find what I did. Luke had posted a photo from a new restaurant, arm draped around Danielle, wine glass raised, captioned, "Nothing like cutting out toxicity and leveling up. Cheers to clarity and peace." The comments were full of fire emojis and clapping hands. A few cousins liked it. Even Mom had commented, "Proud of you, son, always." I stared at the screen. My stomach didn't turn, my heart didn't drop. What I felt was colder than that. I opened my own app. For years I barely posted. When I did, it was sunsets and coffee cups, soft filters and silence. This time I typed, "Sometimes the hardest part isn't cutting ties. It's realizing they were never tied to begin with, just loosely knotted around your guilt." No names, no tagging, no heat, just a clean cut. I hit post, then closed the app. A day later, My father showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole before unlocking the door. He looked smaller than I remembered, like someone had shrunk the version of him that once felt immovable. "I won't stay," he said. "Then say what you came to say." He stepped inside the doorway, didn't cross the threshold. "I read your file," he said. "The one you sent." I folded my arms. "I didn't know it was that bad." I didn't blink. "You didn't want to know." He looked away. "I never wanted you to feel less than." "Then maybe you should have said something when Mom kept acting like Luke invented sunlight." He didn't argue, just stood there, awkward, unsteady. "I won't excuse it," he said finally. "But I remember that day you won that spelling bee, and your mom told me to drive Luke to practice instead of going." That stopped me. "I should have gone with you." I didn't nod. I didn't soften, but I heard him. "You have a good heart, Sienna," he said, backing away. "I hope you don't let us ruin it." And then he was gone. That night, I pulled out the letter to Santa one last time. I didn't cry, but I did whisper something I didn't know I needed to hear. I never needed them to clap for me. I just needed them to stop pretending I didn't exist. And now? Now, they couldn't pretend anymore. Have you ever found something from your childhood that explained more than words ever could? Some truths you whisper to yourself before bed, some you write in journals you never finish, and some you release, not for revenge, not even for closure, but because silence starts to rot when you keep it too long. This wasn't about drama. This was about disinfecting the story. It started with an email, one I didn't send from my primary account. I created a clean alias. No name, no photo, no identifying metadata, just an email address and an attached file labeled Family Matters, What Legacy Really Means. Inside the file were 5 items: the transcript of Luke's conversation on Thanksgiving, his voice laughing, calling me the plumber of the family, bank statements showing his fraudulent use of my name for multiple loans and services, screenshots of Mom's group chat comments, publicly celebrating his fake milestones while quietly mocking my emotional sensitivity, the audio from my dad admitting, "We should have gone to her play." A scanned letter, handwritten, from a child to Santa, mine, dated and intact. The final page was blank, save for one sentence at the bottom: "Some people inherit power, others survive it." I didn't send it to the world, just enough of it. I emailed it to the community board at my parents' church, where they'd held positions for over a decade, a private group chat of extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, where every holiday photo had filtered through for years. Danielle's sister, who ran her bridal consulting business and had posted an "Honor Your In-Laws" reel the day before. And one editor I knew from college, someone now writing features on modern family estrangement and quiet abuse. I didn't expect flames. I expected silence, but what followed wasn't either. It started with whispers, the kind that echo louder when they're spoken behind backs. A cousin texted, "I always wondered why you never said much. Now I get it, I'm sorry." Aunt Denise DM'd me, "Your mom told us you moved away to be independent. She never mentioned any of this." And then 2 days later, I got a call from Danielle. I hesitated but picked up. "Hi," she said, voice unsure. "Hi." There was a pause. "I didn't know," she said, "about the loans, or your name on the accounts, I swear." I believed her. "I think I've spent more time learning about your brother this week than in our entire relationship," she added, almost laughing. But it didn't reach humor. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I didn't send it to destroy him," I said. "I know," she replied, "but it's changing things." "How so?" Another pause. Longer. "He lied about so much, Sienna. About money, about your family dynamic, even about why you weren't close. I used to think you were cold." I didn't answer. "He said you were jealous, controlling, that you ghosted everyone out of nowhere. And now," she exhaled, "now I think you were surviving." I didn't hear from Luke, but I did hear about him. Danielle's engagement announcement disappeared from her socials. So did all the pictures from Napa. Mutual friends messaged me asking what happened, why Luke was suddenly taking time off to reassess, why Mom had stepped down from her church role to focus on family matters, why Dad had stopped responding in the weekly golf group chat. And then I got a letter. A real one. Handwritten. Folded in thirds. No return address. But I knew the script like I knew how to brace for disappointment. Mom. Sienna. This feels impossible to write. I've spent the last week feeling humiliated, furious, confused, heartbroken. You've always been strong. I didn't realize how much of that strength came from learning to be alone. I'm not ready to say everything you did was right, but I see now that what we did wasn't right either. I didn't see you. Not fully. And that's on me. If you never speak to me again, I'll live with that. But if there's a window, a sliver, please know I'm listening now. Love, Mom? I folded it once, twice, set it down, and walked away, not out of hate, but because I no longer needed her to know what I knew. I spent the next few weeks in something unfamiliar, silence that didn't ache. I slept deeper, ate slower, stopped checking for the red notification badges like they were verdicts on my value, and one day I took that Santa letter and framed it. Not because I still believed in wishes, but because I needed a reminder. I had always known what I deserved. I had just been taught not to expect it. What happens when you stop needing people to admit they were wrong and just start living like you were right all along? The room I grew up in doesn't exist anymore. My mother redecorated it last spring, turned it into a calm space. Neutral tones, books no one reads, a candle that smells like hotel linen. She told the neighbors it was for guests. She never called to tell me she cleared out my things. I found out through a photo she posted of the new wallpaper. Caption, letting go of the past, making space for peace. And there it was. My entire childhood turned into a reading nook for people who don't stay. I used to think closure came with confrontation, that someday I'd get to say everything with just the right words, on a dramatic night, with voices raised, tears shed, epiphanies reached. But life isn't television, and the people who hurt you rarely show up for the credits. So I built my own ending, one without applause, one without them. The apartment I live in now is small, but it's mine. The furniture doesn't match. The walls are bare in places. My cat Iris chewed the corner of the couch. And I keep a bottle of red wine on the counter, not because I drink often, but because it reminds me I'm allowed to. Last week I threw a dinner party. 6 friends, no blood relatives. Someone spilled sauce on my rug. Someone else dropped a glass. No one apologized too much. No one performed. When they left, one of them hugged me and said, "You feel safe." Not, "You look good." Not, "You've changed." Just, "You feel safe." I sat with that. Sometimes I still wonder what might have been, if my parents had noticed sooner, if Luke had said sorry before being cornered, if I'd spoken up earlier, louder, messier. But wondering doesn't rebuild you. What does? Waking up without dread? Laughing and not second-guessing it? Having a full refrigerator and no guilt attached to what you eat? Healing is quiet. It doesn't always feel like justice. Sometimes it just feels like space. And for the first time, I have space. A month after my mother's letter, I got a second one. Shorter. Typed. "We understand if you're not ready to talk. We miss you. We hope you're well. Dad." I didn't frame it. I didn't respond. But I didn't burn it either. It sits in a drawer with expired warranties and extra keys. Things I don't need but can't quite throw away. I don't tell this story to be pitied. I tell it because someone out there still thinks being ignored is the price of being easy. Someone out there still calls it love when what they mean is duty. And someone, maybe you, has been waiting for the moment they're allowed to choose themselves. Here it is. Not long ago, I walked past my parents' house. The porch light was on, the yard was trimmed, a wreath hung on the door, even though it was July. It looked beautiful. It always did from far away. I didn't stop. Because the most freeing part of healing isn't being invited back into the room. It's realizing you don't need to knock anymore. Sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is leave the door unlocked and walk away anyway. Looking back now, I don't regret walking away. What I regret is how long I waited to believe that I was allowed to. I used to think family meant keeping quiet, keeping peace, and keeping myself small. But sometimes, healing means choosing distance over approval and freedom over tradition. You don't owe anyone your silence just because they gave you your name. Maybe you've been there too, sitting in rooms that were never built to hold you. Maybe you're still waiting for someone to see you. Let me tell you this: you're allowed to outgrow the role they gave you. So, what about you? Have you ever stayed too long hoping someone would finally hear you? If this story touched you, or made you think of someone you know, drop a comment and share where you're watching from. And if it didn't speak to you, I'd still love to hear why. Let's keep it honest here. And hey, if you're still here and this story meant something to you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. We've got more stories that hit home, just like this.